Maternal mental health specialist Kate Kripke was our very first episode on the podcast when we debuted last spring of 2023. So it is a really beautiful full circle moment to have her on the podcast at the beginning of 2024. Kate is also coming to us from Japan. Last time we spoke with her, she was in Colorado, and she and her family moved to Japan in January. So it's such a treat for her to take time to speak with us. And I know so many partners of commercial fishermen got a lot out of our last conversation about motherhood. And this is going to be such a great conversation about not only parenthood, but partnerships and making time for yourself when you feel like you just don't have time. And also what we can do to make the inside of our brains a more enjoyable place to be. Who's with me? Let's go. I'm Megan Waldrop, host of the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast, an extension of an online community created for partners to connect worldwide, find helpful resources, and share stories to feel less alone in this incredibly unique and adventurous way of life. The POCF podcast invites fishermen, family, friends, supporters, or those curious to know more about the commercial fishing community to join conversations as we learn from each other, laugh, sometimes cry, and relate with those who are the faces behind each catch. What do you say? Let's dive in. Awesome. Okay, Kate Kripke, not only coming to us from Japan, but coming to us from the future. It is bizarre. It is, yeah. Okay, it's 6:07 p.m. where I am right now, and it is 8:07 a.m. where you are.
The next day.
Amazing. How is the future? How is the second going so far?
The future it's not that different from the past. In fact,
that's profound.
That may be where we end up going, right? It's like we set how I feel today has everything to do with what I did yesterday. So there you go.
Oh my gosh. This is so good. Okay. The first question actually kind of goes back to one of your most recent reels that I loved. You filmed you in a room. Was it like a hotel or a lodge that y'all stayed at, a ski lodge? And it was your family, and you have two teenage girls and a husband, and you all were in this room, and you were being so honest about how you were able to get through those moments of just being in close quarters with loved ones. I mean, that is a challenge. So my first question, which plays into this perfectly, what is your advice when your kids or your partner trigger you? Like, what do we do? What do you do as a maternal mental health specialist? How do you get through moments like that?
It's such a good question. And I think we get to begin by saying the answer is not to try to figure out ways to change what they're doing so that they never trigger us, which tends to be what we do, right? We don't like that word. Maybe we even back up a little bit more, Megan, and say, okay, what are we talking about? Well, triggering, essentially, we're saying, I am feeling something inside my body that's very familiar and very uncomfortable in relationship to what is happening outside of me. There's something outside of me that's bringing up a feeling that already exists inside of me, right? Mm-hmm. And what we tend to do is try to micromanage our world around us so that never happens. And so we're going to start by saying, that's going to happen till the day you flip and die. So things outside of us bring out feelings inside of us that already exist. Happens all the time. And what we want to do is blame how we feel on what's happening outside. We want to be like, if you would just listen more, I wouldn't have to feel this way, right? If we just back to that reel for your listeners, we were four of us, 14-year-old, 17-year-old, my husband and myself, for 1 week in a one-room, very traditional Japanese style hotel room. So there are futons on the floor. That's all there is. And all of our stuff and all of our moods and all of our tendencies and all of our triggers all in one room, right? So it would be easy for me to say, if we just had 2 hotel rooms, I wouldn't have to feel this way, right? We want to project outward. And really what we get to do is to recognize that A, the triggers are normal. Of course I'm feeling this way. And B, to recognize that we have the capacity to tend to our own nervous systems in the moment, regardless of what's happening externally. That takes some skill building. Many of us haven't been taught how to do that. But I think to answer your question the most simple way, what would I tell someone who's being triggered by their husband and children? Is that the question you asked?
Yep. Yeah.
The first thing I'd say is, of course, you're getting triggered. That's what happens. You're human. There's no problem here. And second of all, the answer in resolving the tension you feel in the body lies in your own thoughts and your own actions, not in changing the things that are happening outside of you. We can essentially feel any way we want to feel, regardless of our environment, regardless of what's happening outside of us. We don't know that. But that's fact.
Wow. And so whenever those moments come up for you and you're saying, okay, this is I can control my own way of responding, if you will, what do you do? Like, walk us through a moment where you're feeling really triggered. And then what is your next step?
Yeah, great. So why don't we just use this example, because it's all there if anyone wants to go and see it in real time, right? So the example that I shared was that we were all, I mean, I could share so many, but we were all, we were all in one hotel room, and our futons were 1, 2, 3, 4 in a line, right? So it was my 14-year-old, my 17-year-old, me, and my husband. And they were that way because the room was set up that way. Okay. And about 2 days into the stay, my husband moved his futon to the other side of the room. And I'll tell you where I went was, what the F? You don't want to sleep next to me anymore? Like, I didn't say this because I've been doing this work a lot, but so let me back up. My body felt tense and tight. I kind of wanted to cry. I felt all this anger and sadness and disappointment. I felt some shame. I felt all those things that every human being has experienced once or many times in their life, right? It all came right up for me. To use your term, I was triggered, right? And if I hadn't been paying attention, I would have said some words in a very harsh tone towards him and sort of blamed him for those feelings. If he hadn't moved his bed, I wouldn't feel these ways. But instead, I got to say, okay, what am I feeling in my body? I'm feeling all those things I said to him, just told you that I was feeling. And then I offered myself up some compassion, which is how we started your conversation today. Of course I feel that way. Of course I feel that way. My preference is that my husband wants to snuggle up next to me every night. I also know that I feel that way because I have, and this is getting a little in the weeds, Megan, so I'll say this as layperson as I can, but I have what's called historically an anxious attachment style, meaning if I get worried in my life that people don't want to be with me. And so when people separate, I get anxious, right? So of course I feel this way. I know that when people want to take separation, I tend to feel something really uncomfortable in my body. Okay, so I'm offering myself compassion, and then I get to say, how do I want to feel? I want to feel grounded. I want to feel connected to him. Okay, what thoughts and choices can I engage in that will help me feel grounded and connected? Well, I can remind myself that my husband's an introvert, and he's in a room with 4 females, and he needs and likes to take space in order for himself to feel okay. Therefore, his moving his bed has nothing to do with me and everything to do with what he wants and needs to feel okay, right? That already makes me feel more connected to him, by the way, right? I can take some deep breaths. I can remind myself that I'm okay. I can turn around and snuggle up with my daughters, all these things that I can do to feel the way that I want to feel. And it's not dependent on whether or not my husband's futon is next to my futon. Now, I just took us in a whole tangent there. And so I hope that that is helpful and not overwhelming. But the answer is that so often in our lives, we take things personally. We make them about us when they have nothing to do with us. It's just neutral. My husband's desire to move to the other side of the room. It's just his desire to move to the other side of the room. That's all it is. It doesn't have to be anything other than that. And when we get triggered, when our stuff comes up, we tend to hook into those things and make them about us, take them personally. And when we do that, there's a whole other host of problematic things that can happen that has to do with the way we act towards those people or the thoughts we tell ourselves about whether or not we're okay. We get swallowed up in those feelings. Does that answer that question?
Oh, yes. I mean, how it reflects back to the commercial fishing industry,
Yes.
families, is when our partners come back from being gone for months and we want, we miss them and we're expecting this Hollywood reunion and they're going to sweep us off our feet. And then really it's just like awkward almost. Like I say it's like almost you don't know whether to hug or reintroduce yourself. And then you're wondering, wait, why are they tired and why don't they want to come play? Like, oh yeah, they've been on a boat for months working their butts off. Like they just need to sleep and readjust to being on land again, or maybe even being in the lower 48 states, around people. So that was huge for me to go through. And I know a lot of women in my community feel the same way, is not taking that personally, because sometimes that can last from, I mean, some people don't experience it, but it can last for a couple hours to a couple days to a week of people really trying to get back to normal. Mm-hmm.
That re-entry can be so bumpy. So just in like 2 minutes, let's play with this just so that your listeners can see what it looks like with related to that. So take the last time that your partner came back,
Mm-hmm.
bring it up in your mind. Maybe it's happening right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
Remind me what his name is.
Chris.
Okay. So last time Chris came back and you had this, we know this feeling, finally we all get to be together again. And I've missed him. And of course he's, I've seen your reels. You get all dolled up. You look all pretty. Yeah. You get the house clean. You're doing all that stuff. Okay. So walk me through it. So he gets off the boat or he walks in the door and he doesn't immediately show you the kind of love and attention and desire to be home with you that you're looking for. And how do you feel in your body? What's triggered for you? What comes up for you? What do you feel?
I feel like the center of my chest gets tight. That's how it feels actually he just came back last week and then he's left. And that first hour was interesting. And not only that, he's trying to figure out how to be in the home again and be a part of our life. And so even him commenting on me driving from the airport home was like a triggering moment for me. And it was like, oh no, he's just being Chris. This isn't like me taking it personally because I want everything to be perfect. I had everything laid out. I have everything ready. But in my head, I know it's going to be kind of awkward maybe sometimes. And yeah, I feel like the center of my chest I get tight, and then I'm just kind of like more stiff, and I'm just kind of waiting for something to happen, whether that's a good thing or a quote unquote bad thing,
Right.
So that's, yeah.
You're feeling something in your chest. You're feeling a sense of anticipation, but it's anxious anticipation, right? You're feeling, you may be feeling some disappointment, right? That some emotions might be, fear, disappointment, all those things. Okay. That's the first part, is to get really curious about how you feel. The second part, I call this the 3 C's. We're just diving in. The second part is to offer self-compassion, which is meeting yourself where you are. And anytime we're triggered, we have to stop and pause with self-compassion. Of course, I'm feeling this way. There's so much that I've loaded into this reunion, and it's not happening the way I wanted it to in this moment. Of course, I feel these things. So self-compassion is just meeting ourselves just where we are with love and understanding. It's not justification. It's not cheerleading. It's just meeting yourself where you are. And then the third question is the third C is choice. So we have curiosity, we have compassion, we have choice. How do you want to feel? So when he's coming home from a long trip, how do you want to feel, Megan?
How do I want to feel? I want to feel grounded within myself. And I want to feel that I am any emotion can pass like a cloud through me and it's going to be okay. Like that's how I want to feel. I want to feel that I understand where he's coming from and that there is an adjustment time. And I also want to feel compassion towards myself, honestly, because I think the ego for me, I'm going, why are you feeling these feelings?
Yes.
You should be above this by now. It's been 8 years, like this whole, and then that's like a whole beating yourself up thing too. And then also like, is that narcissistic or egotistical to think like you can live above these feelings and they're not going to show up? It's, to have compassion for myself. I love that one of the major C's I need to take in. Even, yeah.
Yeah, you want to feel grounded. You want to feel accepting. You want to feel compassionate towards yourself and towards him. And you want to feel connected. That's the whole reason you cleaned the house and you got yourself all dolled up. And right. You want to feel connected. Mm-hmm. And then that third C is choice. And this is where we sort of don't always follow through to this part. What thought and what small action can you take that will help you get closer to how you want to feel? Most of us ruminate. We get stuck. We ruminate in the disappointment. We keep telling ourselves that we should feel different. We keep getting mad at our husband. Like we keep doing those things, right? And we get stuck in that feeling of tension in our chest or disappointment. And so now the question is, what small action or step can you take to get you closer to how you want to feel? And how would you answer that in those moments if you could take yourself back? You want to feel connected. You want to feel compassionate. You want to feel grounded. You want to feel accepting. What can you do? What's a choice you can make?
Well, for me right now, that's easy to say because I had Brenda Winkle on not too long ago. And I have to say breath work now, learning to breathe through it. Really.
That's right. You can breathe and then you do it. And then you don't just say, I could breathe or I should breathe. You actually breathe. For me, back to that reel, I was feeling one of the things I was sharing as my family went and they chose to go do a ski area that's above my skill level. So I felt abandoned. All my triggers came up. I felt abandoned. I felt left out. I felt all those things. And I was like, how do I want to feel? I want to feel like joyful. I want to feel excited. I want to feel capable. I took myself snowshoeing to the top of a mountain all by myself, and I felt all those things. I didn't have to be with them to feel those things, right? So the rubber hits the road when we take those actions, when we do those things. So again, it's not about no longer feeling triggered, and it's not about no longer feeling the feelings that come with the trigger. It's about doing something different in those moments so that we can move through them quicker.
I love it. I love the reminder that we're human. That sounds so simple, but it's something that I've had to remind myself recently a lot. It's like, you're human. It's fine. It's okay. You're human.
And all humans feel the same thing. So they're human and you're not alone. I imagine for your community, there's a lot of feelings of isolation and being alone. And one of the best things we can do for our nervous systems is to reconnect. And one of the best ways to reconnect is to remind ourselves that these feelings that we're having as a human are felt all over the world all the time.
I love that. Even in Japan.
Even in Japan. Even in Japan.
This is perfect. This perfectly segues into my second question because I'm curious. You speak with mothers from what are the age ranges of the children of the mothers that you generally work with?
I mean, they're everywhere from brand new to young adults in college. So my work really started with that pregnancy, postpartum, first few years work. I think that when mothers are feeling all of the feels that all new mothers are going to feel, and when they reach out for support in that early stage, the rest of their motherhood journey feels more empowering, more connecting, more fulfilling, more joyful. And so it's always quote unquote ideal. That is that early stage where we can learn what we're talking about right now early. That said, it's never too late. And so there's certainly people that come to get this support when their kids are much older. The work is the same, whether they're infants or in their 20s, or you don't have kids at all, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's so true. What is the common thread or common challenge that you see with the mothers in your community right now?
Yeah. I think one of the things that comes up for all mothers everywhere is that when our kids are uncomfortable and distressed, it brings up our own discomfort and our own distress. And one of the things that happens really universally is that we will default to trying to get our kids to feel less distressed. We'll default to the doing. What do I need to do to make sure my kid feels different? That's where we go, rather than saying, what do I need to do to help me tolerate my own distress that's coming up for me now, so that when I address what my kid wants and needs, I can do that from a grounded, steady, stable place. And I think many of us weren't taught when we were young how to move through, let's call them hard emotions: disappointment, fear, anxiety, anger, sadness. And those feelings will come up anytime there's a moment of uncertainty or unpredictability. And I know you're not a mother of a small human yet. You're probably mothering lots of other things in your life, but not a small human. But one of the things that our small humans remind us of is the uncertainty and unpredictability of life. So those experiences, it's like the volume gets turned up on unpredictability and uncertainty, which means our feelings inside of our body, our triggers, so to speak, to use that word, our emotions are going to be turned up. And if we don't know how to manage those, to tolerate those, to get the wisdom out of those, we will get pretty frenetic. We'll feel pretty anxious, and we'll do more outside of us to try to change what's happening outside of us so that we don't have to feel this way. And now we're back to where we started in our conversation today.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, on top of with children, all the unpredictability, it's commercial fishing, so many unpredictable factors that are within that, I mean,
oh, yes.
Like I said, I did a reel, what is it? Of course we're partners of commercial fishermen. Of course we think of our partners dying at least once a day. I'm like, it's a joke, but it's not a joke. It's like we actually do. And so we have to recenter ourselves and send that positive energy out and move on with our lives, because else we'll lose our shiz.
Well, that's right. And to connect it back, many, especially mothers who are caught up in anxious thinking, many mothers think about their children dying every day. Right? So, or something bad happening to their children. That is a very common symptom of anxiety in motherhood. And even if someone's not struggling with anxiety, I mean, if I really sit with the unpredictable right now, 20 years in to this work, 51 years on the planet, 17 years as a mother, if I sit here with you right now and I really look at the reality of unpredictability and uncertainty, and the reality that anything could happen to my children today, I'm going to feel anxious, because that's life. And so if we don't know how to move on from those thoughts about your partner's dying today or something horrible happening to our children today, and we ruminate on those thoughts, we're going to feel really anxious. And so again, it's like both and. Of course you're having that thought because it's possible. And what do you do when you have that thought so that you don't ruminate and recycle and regurgitate both the thought and the catastrophic thinking and the emotions that are going to come with it, and the sense of helplessness and lack of control that's going to come with that?
Mm-hmm. So that would be to breathe and stop thinking, like I can't go down that road anymore. And
well, that's easier said than done, right? Stop thinking that is really, I don't know, but for me, that's always really hard. So the breath work is a tool for sure. And I think what is really important to remember is that there are only two things that we can control: our own thoughts and our own actions. That's it. That's it. And what we're all looking for in life, whether we're wherever we are in the world, however many kids we are, what our partners do for work, what we do for work, what we're all looking for is a sense of control and a sense of choice. And we call that agency. We need agency. We need to have choice and control in our lives for us to feel safe, for us to feel okay, for us to feel confident, for us to feel grounded. And when we don't have an experience of agency, when we feel like we don't have choice and control, we're going to feel pretty crappy. Fill in the blank. Anxious is usually the biggest feeling we feel. And so that the answer to that, the what now to that, is to remember that when we focus on the things that we don't actually have control over, we're going to feel more of a lack of agency, which means we're going to feel more bad. That's not the right term, but we're going to feel worse. We're going to feel anxious. But if we can come back to our thoughts and our actions, find where we do have choice and control and engage in those things, we're going to feel better pretty quickly, which is why breath work is so helpful, because we can control our breath. We can release tension in our bodies through our breath. And when we engage in that activity, we're going to feel better pretty quickly because we're going to feel a sense of agency.
I love that. And this just came up while we were talking. How can somebody who's never gone to therapy before know, like, is there a sign when you should go to therapy? I mean, I've gone to therapy because I've had a moment where I was really fixated and had a lot of anger surrounding somebody who was going through something hard, who was asking for advice, who wouldn't take the advice, which my advice was go to therapy. You need to go talk to somebody who can actually help you. And I was spiraling into being so angry at this person. I'm like, they have all the money in the world. They can go get the bougiest doctor out there. Why aren't they going to therapy? And then I'm like, wait, Megan, why don't you look in the mirror and go, why don't you go to therapy? Why are you so worried about this person? Maybe you need to look at yourself. And so that was my turning point for that. But I'm wondering for mothers or other women out there who are wondering, how do you know when you need to go or when it would be helpful?
Yeah, such a valuable question. And just to break it down a little bit, what therapy is, what psychotherapy is therapy or treatment, right? It's a modality. It's therapy that helps with our psychology, our brain, our emotions, and our thoughts. That's what psychotherapy is. It's helping us work through and understand better our thoughts and our emotions, right? Physical therapy works with our body. Psychotherapy works with our brain, our thoughts and our emotions. Does that make sense?
Yes, I love that.
Just like physical therapy, I would go to see a physical therapist. When might you go to see a physical therapist, Megan?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I did go to a physical therapist because I was having a hard time writing. And so I was thinking it was carpal tunnel and I didn't want to make it bigger. And then I was worried I couldn't pick up my nephews and it became a whole thing. So I went to physical therapy and it was extremely helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
You went to physical therapy because there was something you wanted to be doing in your life that you didn't have access to because your body was hurting.
Yes.
And the carpal tunnel, what was happening with your body was interfering with your ability to do what you wanted to do in your life. Right.
Yes.
Someone else might go to physical therapy if they had a knee injury or a back injury and it was keeping them from moving and getting exercise or playing with their kids. Okay. So we go to some sort of therapy, some sort of treatment when something is happening for us and it's interfering in our ability to live our life the way we want to and need to. That's why we go to treatment, right? So if someone is experiencing emotions or thoughts or behaviors or patterns or habits that are getting in the way of their living their life the way that they want to, that's a time to go get support and help. Now, what that might look like in real life is I am having all these thoughts about bad things happening to the people I love in my life. Maybe it's my child, maybe it's myself, maybe it's my partner. And it's so consuming that I'm not able to sleep at night, right? That might be a time. Or I am so distracted by all of these things, these thoughts I'm having, or my to-do list, or all the shoulds that I have, that I'm not engaging with my kids and finding the joy I want to have with my kids, right? Or another thing that's really common is I'm feeling so sad about this thing, or so angry about this thing, or so anxious about this thing that I can't feel any joy. I can't experience these other things I want to feel. That might be a reason, right? So it's very subjective. That's why it's so tricky. Now, the other thing to remember for me, for you, for everybody, is that we can't see ourselves unless we have a mirror. And one of the things that therapy or coaching or talking to a spiritual teacher, I mean, whatever, any kind of guide, any kind of support person that's unbiased, right? That's skilled in this. What they provide is a perspective that we can't see. And we all have blind spots. We can't see ourselves fully. We just can't. And so I think one of the reasons that a lot of people end up going to therapy is because their lives, something about their lives aren't working for them. Something isn't working for me. I'm not happy. I'm not doing the kind of work I want to do. I'm getting angry a lot. I'm losing my patience a lot. I'm finding myself in relationships that aren't satisfying. I'm, exhausted all the time. Something in my life isn't working for me. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I don't know why I keep finding myself in the same pattern. To your point, I should know better. It's one thing we say to ourselves all the time. Why am I here again? I should know better. And the answer is because we're engaging and we're doing something to contribute to that situation that we're not aware of yet. This brave question, what part am I playing in this thing that's not working for me? And that question, in order to get to that answer, involves a mirror. It requires a mirror. It requires reflection, because we all have blind spots. And so I think that's why therapy, coaching, some sort of mentorship is so helpful, because it helps us see what we can't yet see.
I love this. And I love that we're going to put in the show notes how to get in touch with Kate if you want to work with Kate, which is such a gift, as you can tell, because Kate was our very first episode on the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast. We have you back.
Honored.
It's just, I mean, talk about building a foundation of strength. I mean, that was just, and it is right now. I feel so touched that you made time for us. So thank you for that.
You ask great questions. Great questions.
Thank you. And you know where I get them from is from your amazing newsletter, because I am an avid newsletter subscriber and I really, really appreciate those newsletters. So I'm going to put all that in the show notes for everyone. And I'm going to put that IG reel that we keep talking about in there so people can see it. So speaking of therapy, so that's, I feel like is probably a very big gift to give to yourself to allow you to have time for therapy. So how does one make time for themselves when they say they don't have time or feel that they don't have time? I mean, even whether it's not just therapy, but just attending to their own needs. Like, how does one make time when you feel you have no time?
This is one of my favorite questions. And I will tell you that there have been many times where I, like the rest of us, have gotten stuck in this over-identification with the beliefs that we have, right? So from where I work, it's a really interesting sort of template, right? Our beliefs about ourselves and the world around us lead to the kind of thoughts we have. Our thoughts lead to how we feel emotionally, the somatic experience of those emotions and those emotions themselves. Those emotions motivate certain types of actions and behavior, and those actions over and over and over again make up what our life looks like. Okay? So if I have this belief that I have no time, I have no time. It's not possible. I have 3 kids and my partner's gone. I'm a single mom. I have no time to take care of myself. Right? And I don't know, something might happen. And the thought I might have is, okay, now I have to do that thing. There's so much on my plate. I have to do that thing right now. And my feeling is the thing that I don't want to do, right? The dishes, or answer emails, or whatever the thing is, right? And now how do I feel in my body? I feel really anxious. I feel really stressed. I feel really frustrated, right? And that behavior, because I don't know, or that emotion, because I don't know how to sit with that emotion and tolerate it and learn from it, is going to motivate me to do more, to spend more time trying to finish my to-do list, right? And what's my life going to look like? I have no time for anything else. So the first thing to address is it a limiting belief? Is it possible that it's true? Is it possible that it's not true? I have no time. I have no time. Is that 100% fact? I have no time. Because what we're asking here, Megan, is so brave. It's so vulnerable and it's so powerful. What part am I playing in the things that aren't working for me? What part am I playing in this life I have where there's no time to do anything else except everything on my to-do list and everything everyone else needs from me? Well, it's likely that I have some limiting belief. It's selfish to take time for myself. My job is to tend to everybody else's needs other than my own. Acknowledging vulnerability is a weakness. We could go on. And we want to challenge those beliefs. I can feel like I have no time. I'm never going to challenge that. Of course you feel that way. Look at everything on your to-do plate. Of course you feel like you have no time, but that doesn't mean that that's not true. The other thing I want to remind you, Megan, and everybody else, including myself, is that we often think of the big things that we want and need to do. There is no time for me to take a half a day for myself, right? And really, when we look at self-care, whether it's therapy or going for a walk by ourselves or, seeing a friend or going to bed early, whatever that thing is, right? They're the baby steps that we need to do, not the big things that are actually potentially literally not possible in this moment. And so I think that I just answered it in two ways. Number one is I want all of us to be challenging our beliefs that we have no time. We're not making time. I get that. But it's probably not a fact that we have no time. We're probably spending a lot of time on things that are outside of our control and that aren't serving us in the long run. And so taking an hour away from that thing that you're telling yourself that you have to do, because if you don't do it, something terrible is going to happen when it's really outside of your control anyway. Taking the time away from that and putting that time towards something else that's in service of your health and well-being, therapy, a walk, sitting down and on the couch and staring out the window, reading a book, seeing a friend, taking a warm shower, taking the time away from the things that we're doing that are not serving us because they're outside of our control anyway, and putting it towards the things that really are going to serve our health and well-being. That's what it's going to take to quote unquote get to therapy or do whatever else it is that we need to do. Many of us have limiting beliefs about self-care, that it's okay.
I love this. And I wanted to get your opinion on this too, because I'm a human, limiting beliefs. And this fall, it was really becoming overwhelming for me. And I thought, I've got to change something because I don't like what's going on in my head constantly. So with a giant eye roll, I was like, I guess I'll try these friggin' affirmations everybody's talking about. How lame is that? Like affirmations. And then I started doing them and I'm thinking, oh yeah, the lame, why you saying that you shouldn't do affirmations is the same voice that you're trying to get away from. So why don't we flip the script? And so I did. I like, oh, okay, I am aligned with the energy of abundance. I wouldn't believe it. I would say the list of affirmations that I wrote down. I Googled because I didn't even know where to start. And I was thinking other things that I could bring into my life. And then, by day 3, I was like, okay, yeah, these thoughts were helpful, that I had these little affirmations to help me negate when the negative thoughts came in. And I'm like, no, wait, I'm aligned with the energy of abundance. I don't know what that other roommate in my head's saying, but I mean, not that anything, extravagant was happening. I didn't feel, but then I would start to see these small little pieces of abundance start to build up. And I'm like, oh, I feel the energy shift because I've almost, the word tricked myself, but it felt like I was fooling the shadowy part of my personality into now believing these words that I really do now believe. I mean, it's taken me months, and it took me a while just to get over that because that ego was pushing me down. But I wanted to know what are your thoughts on affirmations, and is that something that you offer your client or the women in your group?
Yes, it's so awesome. And, I think to your point, um, the opportunity for abundance is always there. It's in front of us all the time. Opportunity, possibility, it's always here. But we don't see it when we're focusing on scarcity, lack, right? It's like I don't notice the blue sky when I'm focusing on my hangnail on my toe that's hurting, right? I'm looking down at my toe, not up at the sky. That was a weird example, but you know what I mean, right? It's all there. And call it manifestation or call it confirmation bias, which is a neurobiological phenomenon. It's all the same. We get more of what we focus on, full stop. And so if our mantra or our statement we're saying in our head is focused on lack or not enough, scarcity, problems, negativity, that is all that we will experience. So an affirmation is literally, if we use that word, we are affirming something different that we want more of. That is what an affirmation is. And I think, what was yours? What did you say?
I'm aligned with the energy of abundance. That was the example.
Beautiful. Some people who are walking around with a lot of lack, and by the way, this is why therapy or coaching or reflection is important, because most of the time we aren't even aware. Like 95% of our thoughts are unconscious. We are not paying attention to them. So we may not even be aware that we're walking around saying things up like, I'm not good enough. Oh my God, this sucks. My life is awful. No one ever pays attention. I can't do this. This isn't fair. Life isn't fair. I feel awful. All these things that we're often walking, that's like the dialogue in our head. What's wrong with me? I should know better, right? And so again, beliefs, thoughts, feelings, actions, life. If that is what we're believing and telling ourselves, we're going to feel awful, and the actions we're taking are going to keep us in a state of not enoughness, right? So the affirmation is the opposite of that. If I'm saying I am worthless, and then we're saying I am connected with the abundance of the universe, that might be too much for someone. Mm-hmm. So the affirmation to try on, or the curious place to try on, is, could it be possible that I'm connected to the abundance of the universe? And to notice when I have that thought or that belief, how do I feel? Oh my God, now I feel a little like, I'm curious. I'm a little excited. I feel a little like, I feel some glimmers, that there's some effervescence happening inside of me. Okay. What choice might I make from that emotional place? Well, I might actually go get myself to the beach to go for a walk. And I might notice the awe and beauty around me. And next thing that might happen is someone might walk towards me, and I might have this, I'm open to what's happening next, and I might have this incredible experience. And that person may say, I'm making this up, Megan, but that person might say, oh my gosh, you know what? You should come to this dinner I'm going to tomorrow. Or there is this person I want you to meet. Or I just heard about this job opportunity. Or here's $100 bill I found on my walk. Why don't you have it? I don't know. But the point is that all that stuff that's available to us will become available because we've shifted our mindset. So the answer is yes, affirmations are so helpful. And they don't have to start with, I am love, I am abundance, I am enough. Like all of that, those are amazing affirmations to have. Amazing. Many people may have to work up towards those to start with, is it possible that? In what ways am I connected to the abundance of the universe? And if I walk through my day asking that question, I'm going to see all kinds of stuff I wouldn't have seen if I were telling myself that I'm alone and separate and not good enough.
I love that. I love that. The curiosity and being like, oh, what's around the corner? And also, what's the alternative? I mean, we could just live in the hole that which we've dug. That's not even a real thing. I mean, it becomes real because we make it real, but yeah, what's the alternative? It's like, why not try that? You know?
That's exactly right. And the curiosity opens up our prefrontal cortex, which is rational thought and logical thinking, executive functioning, problem solving, all those things that we want and need to move forward in our life. The limited scarcity thinking is threatening, and it turns on our fight, flight, or freeze response in our brain. And we don't think clearly, and we feel stuck, and we get tunnel vision, all those things that we don't want to experience. So just by asking the question, is it possible that, just by engaging in curiosity, you're opening the part of your brain that you want to be moving through the world with anyway.
Love
Does that
it.
make sense?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to rip through. No, these are so good.
I'm just plugging in my computer.
Oh, please do. And I'm going to start firing questions away because I know you have a day.
No, you're good. I'll give you shorter answers. And
no, please. The open mic forever for Kate Kripke. Okay. Speaking of affirmations and positive thoughts, which we can all use at times when we're dealing with the person we love the most, our partner. So how do you connect with your partner when your schedules are busy? I mean, a lot of women in my community find it hard to connect because, you know, the fishermen come home. They're not only trying to readjust, but then they're probably prepping for another season, another fishery, to work in the yard, all these things. So what is some advice on connecting with your partner when you have busy schedules?
Yeah, great question. So this is all cycling back and forth because many of us hold limiting beliefs around what connection is and what needs to happen to feel connected, right? And from a neuroscientific place, when we are in a place of connection with ourselves, someone else, or our environment, our parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system turns on. We feel good. We feel calm. We feel grounded. We feel safe. When we're having an experience of disconnection from ourselves, the people around us, in our environment, our fight, flight, and freeze response turns on. That's a threat. We feel anxious. We feel irritated. We feel distracted. Okay. So we're looking for moments of connection. So let's start there. How do partners of commercial fishermen connect with their partners is a really broad question. And if my definition of connection is that I'm having passionate, invested sex that lasts hours, or I'm spending a full day with someone, or they're giving me their undivided attention for multiple hours upon a day, or right, we're probably going to feel disappointed, which is going to lead us to feel disconnected, which is going to turn our fight, flight, or freeze response on, right? So the question you're asking is, where can we find moments of connection? Because it's the moments of connection that we're looking for. And we connect in lots of different ways. We connect with touch, physical touch. We connect with words of affirmation. We connect through action. One of the best ways to connect with people is through acts of kindness, big or small. They lead us to feeling connected too. The interesting piece about this is that there are two people at play here. So if I were trying to feel connected to my neighbor and it didn't matter to me whether or not I felt connected, I could connect with them without any say about whether or not they're trying to connect with me, that would be easier than if I'm wanting to get something in return from my partner, right? So two things to remember. Energy, emotion, and energy is contagious. So if I'm moving through the day feeling disconnected and irritable and angsty, my partner will feel the same way. If I'm walking through the world feeling grounded and connected and compassionate, my partner will feel the same way. Now, what I hear from a lot of my clients is, why do I have to always be the one to do the work? Why can't my partner go to therapy? Why can't my partner listen? My partner won't listen to this podcast. Why won't he or she do the work, right? Valid question. Valid question. And to the point you just made a moment ago, we either do the work and feel better, or we don't do the work and still feel bad, right? And everything that I do to get to a place where I'm feeling connected is going to both serve me to feel better and is going to influence my partner to respond to me in the way that I want my partner to respond to me with. So it's always going to have to start with me rather than waiting for my partner to do something different. So I would look for moments of connection. And again, you could read the love languages book, you could do all those things. I do think that it's really useful to set up for success with a partner. One of my favorite exercises that I do with myself all the time and I do with people is a hopes, fears, and expectations exercise. And it goes like this. You are planning for your partner's return and you ask yourself, what am I hoping for? What am I expecting? What do I fear? Anything that's in your expectation list that's outside of your control, you're going to move over to your hope list because we want to make sure that those expectations are realistic and achievable. Because when our expectations aren't met, we feel a lot more than disappointed. We feel angry, we feel shame, we feel critical, we feel resentment. Oh, all those icky things, right? So we want to make sure that our expectations are realistic. My expectation is that I am going to, every day that my partner is here, find one way to connect with him or her. Write a note, send a text message, hug in the morning, all within my control, right? All within my control. If I do those things, I will feel more connected. And if I do those things, my partner is more likely to connect back with me, right? Now, if my hope list is I really hope, right? We go back to the hopeless now. Hopeless might have things in your control, things that aren't in your control. And the question is, what are the small action steps I can take that will get me closer to that thing that I hope? I really hope that my husband, my partner, is going to take at least a half a day and just play with me, go do something fun. Okay, well, what's one small action step I can take that will get me closer to meeting that hope? Well, I can talk to him about this hope or her. How often do we spend our time wanting our partners to mind read, waiting for them to provide us with the thing we want most? It doesn't work. So again, I think we want to go back to the baby steps and we want to go back to what is within our control. And we want to remember that if we're tending to ourselves and our nervous system and our sense of agency, we will have the influence on other people around us that we want to have on them that will make it more likely that they meet us in that place of well-being and connection versus responding to our irritability, our helplessness, our anxiety, our angst. And I don't know about you, but how do you feel when you're around someone who's feeling those things? Do you want to lean in?
No.
No. You want to be like, I got 12 more errands I have to run before I go on that next trip. So I'll see you in 7 hours, right? No, that is not going to get us what we want. There's my answer.
That kind of reminds me of that famous quote, be the change that you want to see in the world. I mean, in our own little worlds.
Mm-hmm. We have to go first. And this comes up in mothering all the time. Why can't my kid be more patient? Okay, well, let's practice how to be more patient for ourselves first, and our kids will follow, right? We have to go first.
I love this. And this goes into the next question. It's a good one. Define good mothering, quote unquote, today as opposed to what has been the expectation of mothers.
This is the defining question of all of my work, Megan. So historically, and I think this runs thick in all places around the world, some in many cultures more than others, but in historically, the good mother is the one that tends to everybody else all the time. Available, sacrificing her own needs, servicing the needs of others. And what happens when we walk through motherhood with that hidden, often unconscious expectation and belief is that we don't tend to ourselves and we become depleted and anxious and angry, and we don't show up the way we want to with our kids. Not because there's something wrong with us, but because we can't. If I'm under-resourced, I can't stay curious with my child. If I'm under-resourced, I can't stay steady when my child is freaking out. I'm much more likely to freak out with my 5-year-old or my 2-year-old or my infant or my 17-year-old if I'm not resourced, right? So I call bullshit. What part am I playing in the things that aren't working for me? I'm not taking care of myself. And that's why I feel the way I feel. It's not because my teenager's not listening. It's not because my baby's not sleeping. It's not because my partner's gone. It's because I'm depleted. And so I feel so strongly about changing this narrative and saying the good mother is the mother who tends to her own nervous system, her own health and well-being physically and psychologically in service of her children so that she can show up and give her children what her children need most, which is steadiness, which is neutrality, which is the capacity to problem solve when problem solve is needed, but also the capacity to allow for distress and pain when that's a child's experience. The hardest part of mothering for me is the recognition that it is not my job to prevent my child from feeling pain. My child builds resilience through her pain. If she doesn't feel pain, she doesn't build resilience. She doesn't grow. It's not my job to go around making sure that she never feels pain, that she never feels discomfort. It is my job to stay steady with her through it. And if I am depleted, I can't do that. I can't be that secure attachment for my child. So the good mom, she makes time for therapy. She makes time to take breaks. She makes time to see her friends. She makes time to rest. She makes time to fill in the blank, whatever it is that's in service of her health and well-being. Why does she do that? She does it for her kids. She does it because it's not selfish. She's doing it for the well-being of her children. I feel so strongly about that. I'm sure you can hear that in the
I love it. No, I'm like, preach. Yes, I love this so much. And as someone who does not have children, what is the best way to help my light just went out. Not my internal light, everyone. It's my ring light. I just want to put a note on that.
No, you're still bright.
I'm aligned with the energy of abundance. Okay. Okay.
And so am I, because I feel it from you. So now I'm right in that zone with you.
So how can I help somebody who is, let's say, sleep deprived because their young child is now sleep regressing and their other child is in elementary school and, all the things, and maybe they're not able to take a nap during the day, but I want to help in some way. What would be helpful for you as a mom for a friend to step in, and what does that look like? What does help look like from somebody who doesn't have kids who wants to help?
Yeah, I have 3 different ways of answering the question. The first is I want you to remember, Megan, as the friend, that it's not your job to fix.
Mm.
It's not your job to take that mom's pain away. It's actually your job to support her in her pain. Same answer I would give to a mother. It's not your job to take your child's pain away. It's your job to support your child in their pain. Their pain makes sense. So one of the mistakes we make when we see friends suffering is, I just want to help. I want to do something so that they don't have to suffer. That's a little bit of the wrong attitude, right? Because there's only 2 things in your control, your own thoughts and your own actions. Where those lead someone, what that person chooses to do with them is within their control. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So sometimes we say, I want to help that person for that person. And I'm sure there's some in there. But really what we might be saying is, I want to do something so I don't have to feel as uncomfortable as I feel when I see that person so uncomfortable. So we can make it feel or sound like it's for them when it might really be for us. Usually it's a both and that is not a place to get shamey. It's just a place to say, okay, let's back up and ask, what is the real question? How can I be most helpful to them is the real question you're asking. And the biggest, most clear answer is give them validation and permission to feel exactly what they're feeling. Of course you're exhausted. Your baby's not sleeping. Do you know how helpful that is for a new mom to hear? Because what that mom is doing is saying, I should be doing something so I don't have to feel so exhausted. What's wrong with me that I feel so exhausted all the time? And the best thing that you can do is say, I see you. Of course you're feeling anxious. You're doing this all by yourself. Your partner is at sea. Of course, this is hard. Of course. By far, that's the most helpful thing to do. By far.
Oh, that just got me all teared up. That's beautiful. I love that. And that feels supportive and not controlly on my
Love
end.
them through it. That's the best gift we can do. Love them through it. And then we're back to the first thing that we said is take care of yourself all that you can so that you're capable of loving them through it. Because if you're feeling all that, when we see people we love struggling, we're going to feel something in our body that's uncomfortable. If we didn't, there'd be a pathology there, right? If I see someone struggling and suffering and I feel awesome as I'm watching them struggle and suffer, that's where the problem is, okay? So I'm going to feel uncomfortable when I see someone struggling. And so in order for me to give them permission to struggle, to make room for it, to allow them to be exactly where they are without making them feel like they should be somewhere different, I have to be able to tend to my own well-being so that I can stay steady with them. Now, of course, I could answer this question a million different ways, but I actually think for the purpose of this podcast, I'm just going to leave it at that.
I love that. That's so valuable. I'm taking that with me and I'm going to use that. And I already feel lighter thinking about that because that is something I know I can do. I can be there and care and love. Yeah.
It's easier than like, oh my God, I'm going to cook them meals every day this week. I'm going to take their kids for them. Now, again, those things might be helpful. So I'm not suggesting you couldn't also offer those things. But that is actually not where the magic lives.
I love that. That is so helpful. And it falls into the next question. How do you stay present for your loved ones when you're just not feeling it?
How do you stay present for your loved ones when you're just not feeling it? Tell me a little bit more of that question. What's the it?
Let's see. It's been a long day and the kids want your attention, or you need to show up for somebody or something and you need to go somewhere and you're done. Like you're done for the day, but you can't back out of this situation. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like you have an obligation. Yeah.
There's irony in this question, and you're right. It's very much connected to the last question and answer, the last conversation. How do I be present when I'm not feeling good is the question you're asking.
Yes.
What's the definition, Megan, of being present?
Oh my gosh, that's a profound question, right?
What does it mean to be present?
To listen, to actually not be thinking about what you need to be doing or a to-do list. This is my thoughts is to actually be in that moment and not think about what you're going to say next or even what you're going to do next.
To actually be in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not feeling good, fill in the blank, if you're feeling X, Y, or Z instead of A, B, and C, what needs to happen for you to be in the moment?
Mm-hmm. Well, after this conversation, I would say something to tend to myself first.
Okay. Can you be in this moment if you're expecting yourself to feel any different than you feel in this moment?
No.
No.
So embracing the now of how you're feeling is number one.
Let yourself feel exactly as you feel. Bring yourself and all of your shit with you. Don't bring all your thinking about how you feel and your all self-criticism about how you feel and all your resistance to how you feel. Not helpful. That's distracting because our thoughts can be distracting. But if I'm telling myself that the only way to be present with my partner is to feel alive and energetic and excited and turned on and all those things, and I'm not feeling those things, but I'm expecting to have to feel those things to be present, there's no way I'm going to be present. But if I can come to the table with all those things, if I can bring my exhaustion with me in my body, if I can bring my boredom with me, if I can bring my meh with me and be like, hey, partner, hey, Chris, here I am, and I'm meh, but I'm here in my meh. You're being present, right?
Yes. I love that.
Same with the opposite. So if being present with Chris means that you can't be present with him unless he is feeling energized, excited, passionate, X, Y, or Z, and you're like, well, I can't be present with him because he's feeling irritated and bored and tired, good luck. But if you're like, I'm going to connect with him just as he is in this moment, now you're connected. Now you're present.
That feels so real too and authentic. I love that. Not
It's the only way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, our moods fluctuate all the time, right? We're never one way. I mean, I just said never one way. Right? We don't work in all or nothings as human. Things move all the time. Our moods move, good or bad. The things that are the opportunities shift, right? Good or bad, quote unquote, whatever that is, they move. And so the only way to be present is to give ourselves permission to be exactly as we are. You and I talked about this before we recorded.
Yeah.
Right? Like, in order for me to show up and be fully present with you, I have to be like, it is the morning. I haven't brushed my teeth. I haven't put on any makeup. I'm still in my pajamas, and I'm going to show up just as I am. And if I give myself permission to be just as I am, I can be present and connected with you, even while I have bad breath and I'm still a little sleepy and I haven't done my movement and exercise yet, right? If I were sitting here and I was like, oh my God, I'm not present. I haven't exercised yet. Oh my gosh, I don't have my makeup. See how distracted I would be? So really, this is the theme of our conversation today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Get ourselves where we are.
I love this. And so my other question was, how do you move through emotional discomfort? And I'll let you obviously answer that. Is that through that acceptance piece? Is that number one?
So 3 C's, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So for your listeners, to remind you, the 3 C's are: number 1, curiosity; number 2, compassion; number 3, choice. Curiosity sounds like what? So let's say I'm feeling what might be a scenario that your listeners where they're not feeling good. They're feeling some emotion that we might describe as unpleasant or uncomfortable: angry, disappointed, sad, scared, anxious. What might be a scenario that someone might feel those things in?
Oh man. The price of fish fluctuating greatly all the time. Yeah.
Great. I love that you brought that up, because the reality is that most things that bring us emotional discomfort are coming from uncertainty and unpredictability. I don't know how my husband's going to be a partner when he or she comes home. My child is going to wake up from a nap, and what if they're tired and haven't it's all about uncertainty and unpredictability, of which the price of fish is. Right? Okay. So the first C is curiosity. When I consider the fluctuating, unpredictable price of fish and what that might mean for the future of my family, how do I feel in my body? How would you answer that question, Megan?
Oh man, I feel it in my throat, honestly, if I start thinking about it.
Great. And I want you, as I take you through these 3 C's, to just stick to answering the question at hand, because the other thing that we do when we're feeling hard, uncomfortable emotion is we tell stories about it. We cycle around it. We have all these narratives and we go off in all these tangents. And that's part of what recycles that emotion. That's where we get stuck. right? So when I take you through these 3 C's, or when your listeners are going through the 3 C's, see what happens if you just answer the question at hand. So how do you feel in your body? I feel something tight and tense in my throat. Okay. What emotion might you connect to that feeling of tightness in your throat when you consider the fluctuating price of fish?
Anxiety.
Anxiety. Okay. That's curiosity. You just moved through the first C. The second C is compassion. And dang, we miss this one so often because we go to where I don't have time to feel this way. I should feel something. Just think about all the good stuff. That's toxic positivity, by the way, skips this part. Mm-hmm. Just be positive. Good effing luck. It doesn't work. The second C is compassion. You meet yourself where you are. So I often put my hand on my heart. I think this is a gesture, such a beautiful gesture of compassion. So if compassion, Megan, is about giving yourself permission to feel how you feel because the feelings make sense, what might self-compassion sound like for you?
It sounds like humming. Like it sounds like.
But what words are you using?
Oh, what words? Of course you're feeling this way.
Of course you're feeling this way. It's so hard to not know. Mm-hmm. Humans feel anxiety around uncertainty. We're wired to, right? Mm-hmm. Back in the day, if we were uncertain about whether or not there was a saber-toothed tiger, right? I mean, yeah. When life was simple, uncertainty equaled near death, right? Now life is more nuanced, but uncertainty, you're going, of course I feel anxious. There's so much uncertainty here. Okay, that's the second C. The third C is that choice. This is where action, this is where we move to a different emotion. This is the question you're asking, but you got to do 1 and 2 first, right? Mm-hmm. How do you want to feel? When you consider the fluctuating cost of fish and you're in this moment of anxiety and tightness in your throat, how do you want to feel?
I want to feel secure.
Great. What is one small action step that has to do with your thinking or your actions? One choice. C, choice. One choice you can make with respect to your thoughts, your actions that will lead you towards feeling more secure in this moment.
Well, what I could do, I mean, I would go to my budget. That's what I would do. I don't know if that's the correct answer, not if there is a right or wrong answer, but I would go back and I would look at our budget that I have listed.
That's great. The anxiety is there for a reason. It's there to tell you that you need something in this moment to feel something different. So if you negate the anxiety, if you push it away, you're missing the wisdom of the anxiety. It's telling you something. One action step I can do is go make sure I've got my budget in line so that I can see where the stability is despite the instability or unpredictability of the cost of fish. Great, that's going to help you feel more secure. That anxiety might be telling you that you're focusing on thoughts that are keeping you in a state of anxiety. I can remind myself that I'm okay. There may be choices I need to make. Ultimately, if the cost of fish went to pot, there might be choices I need to make that are uncomfortable choices, but I would still be okay. I can feel this and be okay at the same time. Rather than, I'm not okay. The price of fish is so all over the place. What if? Not going to help with that anxiety. So you got to pick up a new belief, a new thought that's going to remind you, I'm one with the abundance of the universe. I'm okay. So now nothing's changed in the unpredictability of the price of fish, but you've entered a different emotional state. That's how I'd answer that question. The 3 C's: curiosity, compassion, and choice. The part that's really important, though, is that the rubber has to meet the road. You've got to make the choice. You've got to take that action. Because if you just say, I could remind myself, or I could go do my budget, and you don't do it, you're going to be stuck in that recycle of anxiety. So the rubber hits the road in the action, and we want the actions to be manageable and tiny and baby steps. If the action is, okay, I have to go back and redo my whole budget, it's too big. You're probably not going to do it. If you say, I'm going to spend 5 minutes reminding myself in my budget where my stability and finance is, you're going to do it. Do it. 5 minutes. That's it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I
How
want to
does
shout
this
out.
feel?
Yeah. I'm
How
sorry.
does this feel? How does this feel when I take you through, because we're building agency. That's what we're doing here. We're getting you back to where you have choice and control. How do you feel in your body when we do this?
I feel less scattered and I feel whole. Honestly, I feel my whole body. I don't feel just a part of it being tense anymore.
Beautiful.
And I will put a link in the show notes. I have a budget template for everybody who's interested. I got 8 pages of Google Sheets that are from fishing business to home, all the things. So I'm going to put that in there for everyone.
Right. So here we are with that example of like, for all of your listeners, abundance is there. It's available. You just gave an example. I have this thing. It's available to you. And when we're keeping ourselves stuck in limiting beliefs, habitual limiting beliefs that continue to make us feel stuck, we don't hear that last statement you just made. Here's this great resource for your listeners. It's amazing.
Yay. And another great resource. I love how we just flow into these so easily. That's just how we roll.
That's how we roll.
Okay. If y'all love Kate, of course you do. She has an incredible podcast called Motherhood Uncut with her co-host, Deb Rubin. And I would love to know, how long have you been doing the podcast? And also, what are some of your favorite episodes that you would like to share with people?
That's great. We are in our about to do our 5th season of the podcast. So we've been at it for a while. And it really is we decided to bring to the table, we really were brought to the public all the uncomfortable conversations that we have, just the two of us, about motherhood. They're all the conversations no one wants to have that everyone needs to have. So the good, the bad, the ugly, the humorous, the hilarious. My favorite podcasts, well, I'll tell you, one of the favorites of mine that people loved is that we interviewed our 4 teenage daughters about to have them give us feedback on our mothering. And that was humbling and useful and really incredible. It was one of our earliest podcasts in the 2nd season. It may have been the first episode of the 2nd season. So that is a great one. We also interviewed our husbands on what their experience was of being dads of daughters. That was really interesting. And then, the ones that have gotten the most traction that people have loved most are the ones where we're giving real tools and strategies about how to tend to that nervous system response. We're really talking about all the many times as mothers that we all feel like we're losing our shit and what to do in those moments. There's one on tending to your nervous system, which people have loved. There's a part 1 and part 2 about how do we actually tend to our nervous system in the moment when we're feeling activated or triggered. Back to your first question. And then I had a post on Instagram that really went viral that said 4 reasons why high achieving women tend to struggle with anxiety and motherhood. And people found that that post really enlightening. And we did an episode where we talked through those 4 things, and people have just found that one really useful and validating as well. So there are a few, but there are lots in there.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Obviously, we'll link that as well. And I would love to know, what is your one wish for women and mothers out there listening or not listening, just in general?
Yeah, my wish is that all of the women and mothers out there understood that it is possible for them to feel good, quote unquote, whatever you want to put that, calm, grounded, connected, joyful, empowered, regardless of what's happening in your life. And I think many women, because there's so much cultural expectation there, get really used to this idea of feeling depleted, of feeling exhausted, of feeling burdened. And we don't always know that we have a choice, and we do. And again, the question I invite all of us to ask ourselves is a really brave question. The question is not, where am I to blame for how I'm feeling? How is this my fault? How is what my life looks like my fault? Where am I to blame? It's, what part might I be playing in the things that aren't working for me? All those external stressors are going to be there. And some of us have more than others. Some of us have financial stress, or stress that has to do with our race or our background or our culture or our family of origin or our place in the world that we live, right? There are all kinds of stressors that are likely outside of our control. So I don't want to negate that. And how we feel about ourselves and how we engage in the world around us and how we access experiences of joy and abundance and calm and groundedness is 100% in our control. That's what I want people to know.
I love that. And so how can people how can people contact you or connect with you?
Yeah. So Instagram, I'm really active on Instagram. I love having conversations with my community. So people can come on over there, find me, ask questions, participate. I do have it's an evergreen program. So it's running all the time. It's called the Calm Connection System. It's a 12-week program that's really geared at teaching women, getting women to the place where I just described, giving them everything that they need to do to feel the way in their life that they want to feel, regardless of what's happening outside of them. And I will tell you, I was a psychotherapist for 20 years. And one of the reasons I moved from more traditional psychotherapy to this type of coaching, virtual coaching, is because my experience as a therapist and also as a client is that therapy doesn't always get us where we want to go. It helps us understand ourselves better, but it doesn't always get us to the next place. And the feedback that what people are sharing in this program, I've been in therapy for years. I've never, ever understood this the way I understand it now. I never have felt the way I feel now. There's something so active about it. It's within a community context. So we get the connection and the support. Anyway, I say all that to say that if anybody wants to pop on a call to learn more about that program, to learn about the logistics and what it looks like, I think you're going to post a link in the show notes where someone can schedule that call. And that's a free call. And it's just an opportunity for me to help you figure out what might be getting in your way and to tell you about my program so that you have everything you need to decide whether or not this program is a fit for you. And it's people always say, I don't want to waste your time. And I'm like, my time is not wasted when I get to talk with other women around the planet. Are you kidding? This is like my favorite use of my time. So regardless of whether someone decides to join the program or not, I do think people are finding those calls useful. And it's just a joy for me to connect with people.
Well, you're a joy to connect with for me. And I am so honored. It just feels so good to talk to you. And I really, really appreciate you speaking to our community who desperately love you and appreciate your time so much. So thank you for being on the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast. And I look forward to another one in the future.
Well, you're welcome. And thank you. This is like the best way to start my day. So
this is a great way to end my day. And I love that Kate's in her pajamas and I just waking up. I'm in my pajamas getting ready for bed. So
we were like, we are bookending our days, Megan.
Yes,
here we are.
We are. And we're bookending with abundance.
We are. I'm going to take that mantra and take it with me for my day today, because it's amazing what happens when we open up to that possibility. We can be shocked at what's there for us. So
I love it. Nothing more to be said than that. Thanks, Kate. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye. Let me tell you about our newsletter. So the newsletter goes out every week, same day as our podcast. And it is kind of a juicy one. I have pictures in there that I don't normally share. I have stories in there that I don't normally share that evoke many responses. I did a podcast a couple episodes ago about that exact thing. But the newsletter is just such a great, intimate way for us to get to know each other even more. And if you want to join, I'm putting the link in the show notes. Again, it's every Wednesday, and I equate it to like a little love letter, like passing notes to your friend in school. Do you remember that when you used to fold them all crazy and cool? And God, can we bring that back? This is like a virtual one of those. So would love to have you join our intimate conversations that we take from the mic to the page into your inbox every week. And yeah, show notes, y'all. If you want to join, we'd love to have you. Thank you so much for being here. Your downloads, your reviews mean more than you know, because that's how we know that you are enjoying the podcast. And if you'd like to further support the community, you can tap the subscribe button, share with family and friends, post on socials, or write a review. But you know what? As long as you're getting value, that is all that matters. But if you go that extra step, we truly, truly appreciate it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you're a partner of a commercial fisherman looking for more resources on how to navigate this unique lifestyle, from long distance dating to communication to finances to motherhood advice to mental health, safety, you know, all the things. We're building more resources on succession planning and retirement. It's going to be amazing. There's even an option to join the private forum as well if you jump onto POCFpride.com to learn more. We are there for you. We got all of the community and all of the resources you need, and they are continuing to grow as we learn what you need the most. We can't wait to connect with you, and thank you so much again for being here. Thanks for listening today. Being here means you're a part of the POCF family, and we wouldn't be a community without you. I'm Megan, and this is the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast. As always, much love, POCF pride, and remember, you are not alone.